Re-Zero, Arc 9, Chapter 6, Departure.
With those blue eyes, they came to witness numerous choices, worn from an empty, barren space, that ego was drawn towards a splendid light. Basking in that warmth, it slowly began to outline the shape of its own form. Initially pushed aside, an innate tenderness prevented them from staying away, and gradually, their presence came to be tolerated. Before long, rather than being merely tolerated, a hand was proactively extended to them. Now recognized as a new being, they were bestowed with a new name: rejection and compromise, conflict and acceptance, trust and reliance, then permission and forgiveness. He came to make numerous choices, countless choices, innumerable choices, limitless choices, each were a product of his own very will. And sometimes from up close, sometimes from far away, sometimes transcending all physical and spiritual distances, they bore witness to it all. Not all of those choices, however, led him to the place of his longing. Even then, he did everything in his power in order to continue choosing. With nothing and no one to rely on, they looked at that figure as their example. Even if the culmination of their strenuous efforts were to lead them to a sorrowful outcome, they would continue moving forward. What was so strange about admiring that likeness and way of being? They, too, must make their own choices. His rejection and compromise, his conflict and acceptance, his trust and reliance, as well as his permission and forgiveness. As someone fortunate enough to have experienced those things, they wanted to walk the same path. Be it errors or grave mistakes, this body had committed far too many of them. Not to mask, cover, forget, or overlook these everlasting scars, but to ensure that they would remember them, not for the purpose of being right, but trusting in that want to be righteous, the very same way he chose his path, in order to ensure that his Natsuki Subaru's decision to choose them may not become a mistake. Never did I expect you to be the one who had requested a conversation with me. Not a physical, but an emotional strain was required to push that door open. On the other side, a man with raven black hair sat at an imposing desk, sifting through a large stack of papers, and spoke those words. With those sharp, black eyes, he too had made many choices, and it was by choosing the one path he could amongst many that he now held his current position. All of it was the result of the man's own choices, and thus, Vincent, as you can see, I am busy. That Medium O'Connell spoke on your behalf, which is why I have taken some time, but I cannot spare much more. If there is something you desire, I shall provide it if it is commensurate with your efforts. However, cutting off his words there, the man looked up from the stack of papers towards them. Many thoughts and ideas ran through the pitch-black eyes of the wise monarch, and so, fixedly staring through the one who stood at the door, he opened his thin lips and, Vincent, I have no words to offer regarding his current state. I cannot make any effort to visit him, nor should I. That is, unless it is what you wish for. Being asked that, they shook their head. There was something they wanted to ask of the man in front of them, but it did not concern the one he spoke of directly. There was most likely nothing they could do for him at that moment. The same went for the others around him. Therefore, their reason for having come here lay somewhere else. Certainly, he would have chosen to stand up once again. That they came here was in preparation for when he would stand up again, so that when he chose to rise up, they too would be in a position to make a proper choice. Vincent, then, what is it that you desire? Being stared at by the man's black eyes, they met that gaze with their own blue eyes, and paused for a moment. Most likely, within this vast empire, those who witnessed the most of his choices were their own blue eyes, that kind girl's pale blue eyes, and the black eyes of the man before them. Hence, they spoke to him, who understood the weight of choice, and, you, thus, that life born from an empty ego, set forth to make a choice of her own. On the day that Subaru and the rest of the Emilia camp were to depart from the Wallachian Empire, it had been raining since the morning in Wallachia, which usually had endlessly long stretches of sunny days. Subaru, really, I hate the Wallachian Empire. Seeing the climate of the empire, which could not even send them off in high spirits, Subaru's lips spilled that out, unable to grow accustomed to this country from start to end. But then again, though he hated the Wallachian Empire, the people he had encountered in this country had not been so bad. Rather, that could be called the worst aspect of the time he had spent in this country. But, flop, husband-kun, I truly am indebted to you. Please, be well in the kingdom too. Subaru, what are you saying, Flop-san? I'm the one who's indebted to you, and even now that debt continues to increase. I haven't even done a single thing to return the favor. Flop, ha ha ha, you mustn't say such foolish things. Just how much fortune do you think my sister and I shared thanks to the things you did for us, husband-kun? Both Medium and I have found spouses. It's a matter of great celebration. Saying that, Flop firmly struck his own slim chest. While Subaru was busy losing heart, Flop had displayed his manliness by magnificently succeeding in courting Tarata, so Subaru found himself feeling a mix of surprise and respect. Since Tarata, who originally was only attracted to good looks like her older sister, Zelda, seemed to have been charmed by Flop's humanity, Subaru was glad to hear that everything came together quite well. Towards both Flop and Tarata, Subaru was naught but thankful. Flop, husband-kun, you have my gratitude. Subaru, even so, being embraced by Flop from the front, Subaru's breath was taken away. As Subaru unconsciously tensed his body, Flop spoke in his usual tone, no, in a voice filled with more emotion than usual. Flop, that day, when you appeared before me and Medium, carrying wife San as she was seated, I thought it was an unbelievably fateful encounter. And, it appears I wasn't mistaken. Under a distant sky, I'll be wishing happiness upon you and the people who are precious to you. Subaru, Flop, if you ever come to the Empire again, I want you to contact me whenever. Conversely, if I ever happen to go to the kingdom, I'll definitely be counting on you. I'd absolutely love to get your help. After letting go of Subaru's body, Flop O'Connell smiled as he always did, radiating as brightly as the rays of the midday sun. From their very first encounter to this farewell, his presence, which had not once lost its cheerfulness, caused Subaru's heart to tremble greatly. In the Wallachian Empire, the first person he had met was the Veiled Emperor, followed by the people of Shudrak, who had continued to fight alongside them across the whole journey. However, the people that Natsuki Subaru had been most blessed to encounter within the Wallachian Empire were undoubtedly the O'Connell siblings, Flop and Medium. He now truly felt that once again, very, very strongly. Subaru, yeah, I'm thankful to you as well, Flop-san. I love you. Including his highest tier of gratitude within the Wallachian Empire, Subaru responded with a smile. Rem, I think you should stop saying I love you to everyone so lightly. It makes everything you say seem frivolous. Subaru, no, I don't say it to just anyone. Only to those I truly love. Rem, is that so? To Emilia-san and Beatrice-chan too? Subaru, I tell Biko morning, noon, and night, but it's a little harder to say to Emilia-tan. But I might have said it to Nei-sama. Rem, Subaru, sorry, that was in the heat of the moment, but I meant it. With her light blue eyes glaring sharply at him, Subaru shrank back, apologizing profusely. Despite having just shared a tearful farewell with Flop, the sudden shift was jarring. Nonetheless, Subaru managed to keep his eyes dry, even after the emotional goodbye to his friend. Subaru, a man can't cry that easily. A man can only cry in front of others 3 times in his life. Rem, is that so? Subaru, yeah, that's right. Shouldn't you be asking what those 3 times are? Rem, your expression seemed like you were begging to be asked, which was unpleasant. Subaru, isn't that a bit too harsh? Subaru raised his voice in protest at the extreme statement, prompting Rem to sigh. Yet, despite this casual banter with Rem, Subaru felt a sense of relief. For the past few days, the tension between Subaru, Rem, and their companions had been palpable, largely due to Subaru's issues. He had probably, most likely, undoubtedly caused them considerable worry, so he was determined to change his attitude and make amends through his actions moving forward. Subaru, how about you, Rem? Did you have a proper conversation with Katya-san? Rem, I can't say it went perfectly. But yes. She said she'll send letters. I'd like to send one as well, but I'm not sure what to write. Subaru, it's a letter to a friend, right? I guess maybe something along the lines of updating each other on your current situations, asking how are you doing? And stuff like that. But I've never exchanged letters with friends myself, so I'm not sure. Rem, would something so trivial be okay? Subaru, I think so, yeah. Subaru answered Rem's uncertainty, brazenly imagining Katya's thoughts. She was Todd's fiancée, and as someone who had witnessed his final moments, Subaru had not had the chance to properly sit down and talk with Katya. Even so, Katya had stayed with Rem after her kidnapping and became her friend, and for that, Subaru felt nothing but gratitude and goodwill toward her. Subaru believed that what Katya expected from her correspondence with Rem was not for some exciting dramatic stories to be shared. Subaru, what's important is the proof that you're connected, that you care about each other. I think what's crucial is conveying that even if you're not within arm's reach, you still have a place in a corner of each other's minds. Rem, Subaru, did that sound weird or creepy? Rem, no. For once, I actually agree with you. Rem slowly shook her head in response to Subaru's hesitant question. Then, with a soft smile, she continued, Rem, as you said, it's not something to be anxious about. If I were in Katya-san's position, I wouldn't expect anything special from her letters. Just knowing that her letter reached me would be enough. Subaru, exactly. Rem's reply and nod made Subaru smile back at her and give her a thumbs up. Although Rem ignored that gesture, she walked beside Subaru without any sign of discomfort. Considering how their new relationship in the Empire had started, this dramatic change was nothing short of miraculous. Subaru, and so, having said their respective goodbyes, Subaru and Rem walked side by side toward their destination. There too, someone awaited with whom they had to exchange farewells. The one with whom Subaru and Rem both needed to talk was Subaru, Spiker. Spiker, wow. Spiker turned around at the call, her face lighting up as she saw them. Her golden hair, tied up behind her head to look like a tail, swayed as she fiercely sprinted towards Subaru and Rem. Subaru spread his arms wide to catch her, ready to embrace her. Rem, whoa. Subaru, huh, you went to her? Next to Subaru, who had struck out, Rem caught Spiker as she leapt into her arms. Spiker cooed, rubbing her cheek against Rem. At first, Rem was surprised, but she then smiled warmly, stroking Spiker's head in response to the affectionate gesture. Watching the two, Subaru sighed and clasped his hands behind his head. Subaru, you're still clinging to Rem? Huh? If I did the same thing, I'm sure I'd get a really nasty look from Rem. Rem, huh? Why are you suddenly stating the obvious? Subaru, see? This is what I'm talking about. Spiker, help me out here. Spiker, you. Subaru, see, even Spiker is giving me that look. Wait, is she angry at me? Spiker, are you siding with Rem? I'm all alone here, still clinging to Rem's waist. Spiker glared sharply at Subaru. Seeing this, Subaru slumped his shoulders, and Rem was astonished, wondering what he was doing. Subaru could not help but scratch his head and feel oddly reassured by the interactions between Rem and Spiker. Subaru, thinking back, the tumultuous days in the Wallachian Empire had begun with Subaru, Rem, and Spiker. Up to this point, they had walked alongside one another with a rock-paper-scissors-like power balance where Subaru was weak to Rem was weak to Spiker, and Spiker was weak to Subaru. The relationship between the three of them had changed shape before they knew it, and today would mark yet another change. After all, Subaru, you don't want to be separated from Rem, do you? Why don't you forget about staying in the Empire and come back to the kingdom with us? Spiker, you. Subaru, oh, so you finally come around. Yeah, I agree. The Empire sucks. Rem, she's shaking her head. Please don't try to twist Spiker-chan's will. Rem glared at Subaru with narrowed eyes, making him stiffen his cheeks and go silent. Spiker, resting her back against Rem, nodded vigorously with a serious look on her face. Her expression made it clear that she had no intention of changing her mind. It was a decision that Subaru found incredibly difficult to accept. Spiker had decided to stay in the Wallachian Empire. She would part ways with Subaru and the others returning to the kingdom, remaining in the Empire to fulfill a certain duty. This was the plan that Spiker had discussed with those around her and ultimately chose as her path moving forward, during the time when Subaru had been engrossed in the Pleiades battalion Sparka. Subaru, you want to stay in Wallachia and send all the undead revived by the great disaster back to Odlogna through star eating. The idea itself is something I want to support, really. Countless undead had been resurrected by the witch, Sphinx, and utilized as the spearhead of the great disaster. Even after the great disaster had ended, those who had not been destroyed had fled and still remained within the empire. Spica had decided that it was her duty to completely devour every last one of those undead. However, Subaru, unlike before, the undead can't revive infinitely anymore. Even without star eating, defeating them should be enough to get rid of them. You don't have to do this, Spica. Spica, oh. You, Subaru, then the souls used to resurrect the dead won't return to where they belong, you say? Well, I suppose you intuitively understand that better than I do, but are you sure about this, Spica? Subaru tried to persuade her, but Spica firmly nodded, her face showing her unshakable resolve. They had gone through this exchange nearly 10 times already, with Subaru trying every possible approach to change Spica's mind, but he had yet to achieve the result he desired. What frustrated Subaru was that Abel, who had been consulted about Spica's decision, took advantage of the fact that Subaru had his hands full with the Sparker and had managed to completely convince her. Of course, even if Subaru had been consulted during his narrow-minded state, he doubted he could have engaged in a positive and constructive discussion for Spica's sake. But still, Subaru, I can't stand it. I can't stand how he always gets everything to go his way behind the scenes. Rem, I don't think it's fair to make it sound like everything is Abel-san's fault. This is Spica-chan's decision, and she first consulted Medium-san about it. Subaru, I know, but still, it's hard not to feel frustrated. Rem slowly shook her head at Subaru, who could only speak from an emotional standpoint. However, Rem's expression also could not hide the loneliness she felt, as she too, just like Subaru, had been one of those deeply involved in discussing with Spica regarding her future. It might have sounded presumptuous to say this, but Spica had become a significant part of the current Rem, whose memories had not yet returned. In truth, separating from Spica was likely much harder for her than for him. And yet, Rem, why is it okay for you and me to act on our own thoughts and desires, but not for Spica-chan? She's been worrying about us all this time. Subaru, Rem, gently stroking Spica's head, Rem showed respect for the girl's significant decision. Unlike Subaru, who could not accept it, she had already made up her mind to see Spica off properly. He admired her resolve, and he understood Rem's point of view. Of course, Subaru, but it's still painful. Even if he was told he was a poor sport, a sore loser, overprotective, meddlesome, or creepy, it would not change the fact that it hurt. Spica's decision was undeniably impressive, but if Subaru were to be honest, while he wanted the souls of the dead used in the great disaster to find peace, he was more concerned about not wanting Spica to do something dangerous. In his currently heartbroken state of mind, Subaru wished he could put all his loved ones in a box and carry them with him everywhere. Subaru, but neither Spica nor Rem would fit in my box. Rem, why are you talking about boxes all of a sudden? Subaru, boxes don't matter. What's important right now is Spica, not some boxes. Right, Rem, but you're the one who talked about boxes. Abel-san is taking this matter seriously too. That's why he's going to assign the 2 strongest people in this country to accompany Spica-chan. Subaru, but Ceci is just strong and nothing else. He'll have a bad influence on Spica's education. Subaru loudly insisted that Rem's rebuttal was not a valid one. When Spica had decided to embark on a journey to hunt down the undead, Abel had suggested that she be accompanied by Cecilia Segment and Arakia. Certainly, having such powerful companions would alleviate any concerns about Spica's safety in situations where combat power would be needed. Subaru, but that's all. The demerits of their personalities outweigh their strengths, and it feels like Abel just pawned off a problem onto Spica. Rem, you're overthinking it. Arakia-san. The spirit she absorbed was the source of the power to resurrect the dead. According to Abel-san, that gave her the ability to sense where the fleeing undead are hiding. Subaru, I have trauma from Arakia too. She got me so many times with her water. Ceci, who seems like he can communicate but actually can't, and Arakia, who looks like she can't communicate and really can't. Now I'm really starting to get anxious. Spiker. I can't let you become a beast tamer. Subaru's words were abruptly cut off. It was because Spiker, who had separated from Rem, suddenly jumped into Subaru's chest. Caught off guard, Subaru reflexively caught her light body, and as he looked down, he saw Spiker gazing up at him, and then, Spiker, wow. With that single word and Spiker's smile, Subaru found himself unable to continue speaking. Subaru, Abel, that fucking bastard. He went and talked things over with Spiker while I was busy. He really is a sneaky, dirty scumbag. Rem, that's going too far. Let's just say he's underhanded, cunning, and has some flaws in his personality. Subaru, hey, isn't it pretty much what I just said? Rem, it's not like I want to be separated from Spiker-chan, either. Subaru complained in a weak, rasping voice filled with resentment, and Rem, hiding the tremble in her own voice, responded. Realizing that Rem's feelings of loneliness were being transmitted to him, Subaru swallowed his own weakness. Then, he pulled Spiker closer in his arms and, hugging her tightly, Subaru, listen, don't rely on Abel or Ceci. If you run into trouble, turn to Medium-san and Flop-san. Let them help you write letters, too. Spiker, Subaru, it's important to have a purpose and a goal, but don't push yourself too hard. Take it slow, at your own pace. Rushing and doing something reckless is the most dangerous thing. That's my golden rule. Spiker, Subaru, there's no strict deadline or fixed date for this. So, neither you nor I can say exactly when, but even so. I'll be waiting. Spiker, Subaru, you've decided how to use your power properly. I'm proud of you, Spiker. I have to learn from you, too. He truly, sincerely thought so. Spiker had chosen to use the terrifying authority of gluttony correctly, according to her own will. Using that power, she would help heal the deep wounds inflicted upon the Empire. This was Spiker's way of breaking away from her abhorrent past, from Louis Arneb. Spiker, wow. Subaru was not sure if his heartfelt admiration had reached her, but Spiker quickly spun around, slipped out of Subaru's arms, and grabbed his hand, starting to pull him along. Dragged by her momentum, Subaru was forced to walk. As she pulled Subaru along, Spiker extended her free hand to Rem. Spiker, Rem, yes, Spiker-chan, called with a smile. Rem took Spiker's outstretched hand. With Spiker in the middle, holding both Subaru and Rem's hands, the three of them started walking together. Despite all the time they had spent together, they had never walked like this before, side by side. Honestly, Subaru had not thought such a thing would ever be possible. But, on this last day in the Empire, they were doing it. Spiker, in high spirits, Spiker swayed her body as she leaned on Subaru and Rem's hands. Over Spiker's head, the gazes of Subaru and Rem met, and then, out of nowhere, they both burst into laughter. Subaru, PFFT, Rem, hee, Spiker, AAU, wow. The three of them, including Spiker, laughed as they walked toward the meeting place. This was the end of their story in the Wallachia Empire, that the three of them had started together. Vincent, the girl in question, shall part with the troublesome title of Sin Archbishop. It ought to be an adequate weight off your shoulders, too. Subaru, as Subaru patted the neck of Patrash, who had been loading the dragon carriage with the luggage, of which there was far too little when considering the number of events that had happened since laboriously rushing all the way to the Empire. His Excellency the Wallachian Emperor declared so with a self-important expression. After taking the trouble to come out and bid him farewell, the undiminished snideness in his attitude was awe-inspiring. Subaru, I'm begging you now, don't immediately get decapitated by a rebellion and let the government change. I'm tired of running about everywhere in order to save your ass. Vincent, fool, your efforts are no longer required. You had better return to the kingdom at once. Subaru, this bastard. Vincent, there ought to be a duty you ought to fulfill. In that, You absolutely must not Subaru. It was a snide remark that Abel spoke as naturally as he breathed, but his words were also pregnant with nuance that was not so terribly meager. He was a bit worried about whether an emperor who required such difficult-to-understand subtleties be picked up on would be able to manage the empire properly from here on out or not. But, Subaru, well, I guess you'll be fine if you have Medium-san and the others. Having heard the prophecy of the forthcoming great disaster and the would-be lost emperor, Abel had devoted his official and personal days to that purpose without sparing time for personal affairs. That warning had come undone, and from here on, Abel would spend his days as Vincent Wallachia, who, for the first time, would be acting as an emperor who was not tied down by anything, no longer spending his time preparing for the great disaster. At the outset, he might be at a bit of a loss, but, surely, he would grow to be able to take those in his surroundings into consideration. As proof of that, Vincent, regarding the peril on this occasion, that girl shouldered a great duty. In addition, she has promised to endeavor to clear away anguish in the empire hereafter. She shall be bestowed with prestige that rivals her ill repute. Subaru, having backed Spiker's decision to remain the empire, those were Abel's true intentions. Their story in the empire had begun with the trio of Subaru, Rem, and Spiker. As the first one to have intervened in that story, this was quite a characteristic way for Abel to pay Subaru back. No matter how many words he exhausted, the fact that Spiker's past self was the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony would not change, and for that fact, there were many people who would reproach and reject her. They could not deny people who harbored such negative emotions regarding the matter, nor was it something they should do. Even so, if the individual girl known as Spiker wanted to affirm her existence, to affirm that she lived, if she wanted that to take form, she had no choice but to build it up. No choice but to build up a great renown that exceeded her ill repute, such that Spiker would be allowed to live as Spiker. Vincent, remember this, Natsuki Subaru. The sword wolves of the sacred Wallachian Empire never forget the wounds they bear. Whether those are wounds of abhorrence, or of friendship, this remains true. Subaru, Abel, Vincent, if you have anything to say, have at it. You, and those who share in your path, are equal to the pack of sword wolves. Through that comment, Subaru felt that Vincent Wallachia, a man who would absolutely never bow to others, nor permit the act of playing up to him, had revealed his heart of hearts. As Subaru experienced a quiver from the very foundation of his heart at that sensation, Abel nodded. Vincent, it was a great service. Along your journey, and then from tomorrow onwards, stride forth with firm steps upon the ground. Subaru, you too. Geez, I'm not gonna lend you a hand even if you fall over. Vincent, fool, upon his mouth as he spoke ill of Subaru, was present a smile that was certainly distinct from that of ridicule. Witnessing that, Subaru, turning his back, Subaru faced the dragon carriage, and began to tread forth. As Subaru walked with the gaze of the Emperor upon his back, Emilia and the others awaited him beside the dragon carriage. Gazing at the faces who had shown up to see them off, standing upon the path towards it, at the figures of the Pleiades battalion who were naturally among them, Subaru slightly gulped down his breath. Subaru, the sparker that had begun with Subaru's entreaty, his act of making amends to 931 people, despite Subaru pleading that it had yet to be completed with the 673 hits that still remained, none of them had lent him an ear. All of them were now lined up here, meeting the gaze of Subaru, who was all bark and no bite. Subaru, the lined-up Pleiades battalion all raised up their arms in succession, and their brusque hands decorated Subaru's path like a hanamichi. Understanding the intention behind that, Subaru lifted his face. So as to not let the things welling up in his eyes start to spill out, he endured, and then, Subaru, I love you, all of you. That which had caused Rem to get mad at him before, Subaru shouted out again as he broke out into a sprint. With the many hands reaching out from left and right, Subaru moved to overlap his own hands. With a clap, the sound of hands striking hand rang out, and persisted ceaselessly in quick succession like the sound of rainfall. It was not just hands clapping against hands, there were also some hands that struck Subaru's body. Being pushed and jostled and knocked about by those who knew Natsuki Schwartz, while lightly forgetting about the 673 hits that remained, assisted in Subaru's Sparker. Question mark. In my capacity, I have enjoyed myself quite a bit. 4 large, bulky hands clapped him on the back. Question mark. Thanks to you, the mere son of a miller got to live the dream. With a man who was far more stout and supple than his appearance might suggest, he struck hands. Question mark. God damn it, God damn it. Thank you, Schwartz. Against the tail of the lizard man who cried out with trembling tongue and tears in his eyes, he bumped his fist. Question mark. Never forget. We your comrades. While passing each other, receiving a powerful fist to the side of his face, he clutched his jaw and nodded with a got it, and then, question mark, Schwartz Summer, making it through after being jostled about by everybody, he proceeded to the kimono-clad girl who awaited him at the end of it all. Together with Yorna, who was likewise clad in a kimono, they had been waiting for Subaru. Coming to a halt before those two, Subaru first locked eyes with Yorna. Subaru, Yorna-san, thanks for everything. Also, Yorna, you do not need to give any sort of apology. The matter of that girl is a matter between her and myself, Subaru. Yorna, additionally, you may come visit us at any time. For you, we shall give a warm welcome. Seeing the mistress of the Demon City give a gentle smile, Subaru nodded deeply with a yeah. Then, he once again turned to face the girls standing along with Yorna. Tanza, Subaru, you called me Schwartz Summer again, now didn't you? Tanza. For me, that is the name I am most accustomed to calling you by. Subaru, for me, too, it just doesn't feel right unless you call me that. A smile emerging on his face, Subaru crouched down before her. Before, their gazes were at the same height, but now their heights would not align unless he bent his knees like this. Now that they had returned to this height difference, he had wanted to speak to her with the same line of sight. After all, in the Empire, Tanza was Subaru's unwavering, indispensable benefactor. Subaru, next time, without a doubt, we will not lose. Tanza, dash. What? Subaru, that's the magic spell you cast on me. Because I had that, I didn't give up. Blinking her large, round eyes, Tanza searched her own memories for those same words. However, no matter how hard she searched, she would not be able to find them. After all, the humongous debt of gratitude that Subaru would never be able to repay, no longer existed anywhere outside of Subaru. That was fine. Whether that had occurred in this reality or not, it was fine. That unfading gratitude and joy was certainly present within Subaru. Therefore, Subaru, I love you, Tanza. Tanza, if you keep going in such a manner, you will most certainly regret it. Schwartz Summer, Subaru, Rem told me something similar. If there had been more time, you two probably would have gotten along well. In exchange for that, would I die from your cold stares? Tanza, could you not get so fired up like that, and could you not die all on your own? Besides, I believe that your attitude of treating this like a lifetime farewell will end up strangling you later. Schwartz Summer, Subaru, What's that supposed to mean? Tanza, you will find out before long. As Subaru tilted his head, Tanza would not tell him the answer, only, she lightly clapped her hand against Subaru's proffered one, and after contributing to the sparker like her other comrades in the battalion, tenderly clutching his hand with both of her own. Tanza, thank you for allowing me to stay in your care for a period longer than initially anticipated. Please, be of good health. Subaru, that long valediction, there's a shorter way to phrase it, you know. Tanza, I will not say it. Please return to your home. Parting hands with the cold Tanza, Subaru wryly smiled, and used his hand to give her a pat on the head. Subaru took the fact that she did not shake him off, and her attitude which left a bit of a mystery, as parting gifts from her, and then, you, before him as he turned around, Spiker was waiting for him alongside Rem in front of the dragon carriage. He had already spoken at length about being unable to let her go. Even so, once more, he was about to try to convey his feelings of wanting to take her home with him, but at Spiker's embrace, all of that was obstructed. Tightly hugging Spiker as she pounced on him, Subaru patted her on the head, and then looking up, Subaru, I'm really counting on you to take care of Spiker, Cecilus, all right, boss. Hearing this response from the guarantor who, though reliable, caused inexhaustible worry, Subaru ultimately performed the final high five with him. After doing so, He turned around, the faces lined up there, looking over all of them. Subaru took in a large breath, and then, Subaru, may we someday meet again, everyone. Victoriae, Pleiades, Victoriae, as Subaru thrust both of his arms to the sky and shouted that aloud, the voices of the Pleiades battalion resounded. At that figure, those who did not know of the battalion's customs were greatly perturbed, and conversely, the members of the battalion laughed and cried very much. That ridiculously noisy scene unfolded. Vincent, to the very end, you remain an enormous fool whose irreverence knows no bounds. Indeed, to the extent that the Wallachian emperor would make a comment, the scene of a ridiculously boisterous farewell unfolded. Subaru, I wonder if Spiker will be okay. Can she manage without us? Beatrice, you've been worrying non-stop, I suppose. There's no need to be so concerned, in fact. That girl is thinking much more clearly than Subaru is right now, I suppose. In the dragon carriage on their way back, Subaru rested his chin on his hand and stared out the window, while Beatrice, sitting on his lap, tugged at his cheek and scolded him. Subaru pursed his lips at Beatrice's reprimand, but he could not argue back. In fact, she was right. As Beatrice said, Spiker had a more realistic outlook, taking her past as a sin archbishop seriously. Spiker had taken action to shake off that infamous title. Even though it was the sin of another her she did not remember. Rem, you treated Spiker-chan very coldly for a long time, so she had the chance to understand her position. Ram, oh, I see. Although the circumstances were what they were, Barusu is still as narrow-minded as ever, even toward a girl who is so attached to him. Subaru, ugh. Across from them, the Oni sisters were holding hands side by side and delivering scathing remarks with their sharp tongues. These remarks pointed out Subaru's past actions, leaving him with no room to argue. While it was heartwarming to see the sisters so in sync, it was hard for him to smile. Otto, personally, I am reassured by her decision. In the first place, if we were to bring her with us, she would need to be locked in a box for crisis management. Subaru, is it just me? Or does your box seem to serve a different purpose and feel much less comfortable than mine? Otto, who knows? Either way, the Empire and Anastasia's camp are in collusion on this matter. I think this was the best possible outcome. Garfield, I don't really get the complicated stuff, but if she finishes dealing with all the zombies, she'll be able to come back from the Empire, right? If so, let's hope she gets it done quickly. Garfield's straightforward attitude about looking forward to Spiker's return was something Subaru appreciated, especially compared to Otto's strict realism. Garfield probably had his own feelings of dislike toward the Sin archbishops, but, Garfield, my amazing self also fought Captain and the rest of y'all and tried to kill ya. Like double-dipping the Vinuir, it can be a good thing to get a second chance, right? Subaru, you've got a big heart. Unlike a certain someone, Otto, let me tell you, Natsuki-san and Garfield's so-called big hearts are more like irresponsibly wide open, if you ask me. Subaru and Garfield bumped fists as Otto yelled in a loud voice. It had been a while since Subaru heard Otto's voice with such energy. Finally free from the heavy responsibility of saving the Empire, Subaru was starting to feel like his old self again. Of course, that did not mean his worries about his companions, or about being separated from Spiker, had lessened in any way, but, Emilia, we're in this together, after all. Emilia spoke softly to Subaru, who had narrowed his eyes in thought. When Subaru turned toward the gentle touch of her hand, he found her soft amethyst eyes looking at him with such tenderness that his chest tightened. No one had asked Subaru if he was all right now, if the depression had passed, or any of the usual questions. He was feeling down, he was hurt, and he did not know if he would ever be okay again. They understood Subaru's feelings without needing to ask. Subaru, thank you, Emilia. For coming to save me, Emilia, MHM. Subaru, thank you, everyone. For coming to save us. Subaru expressed his gratitude to Emilia and everyone else, who had crossed the border and entered the land of carnage that was the Wallachia Empire to help him and the others. Everyone responded to Subaru's thanks in their own way. Subaru, there were some things he had lost, things that had slipped through his fingers, disappearing into a place beyond his reach. It was her way of life, true to herself. Never once did she, or anything else, go as Subaru or anyone else wished. Until the very end, in every possible way. Maybe that was why, even though he had so many regrets, Subaru, right now, I can't remember anything but your smiling face, he mourned her, she who had etched her fearless and prideful self into Subaru's memories. That was Natsuki Subaru's way of mourning her, a mix of heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for the one who had spent her final moments in conversation with him. And, Subaru, while blessed with companions who stood by his side, Subaru was concerned about the other dragon carriage heading towards the kingdom, the camp of the late Priscilla and those who were left behind. While Roswell, who was riding in that carriage, was likely providing consultation regarding the future of Priscilla's burial domain, Subaru's mind was focused on another issue. That was, Subaru, Al, who had been there during Priscilla's final moments, holding her until the very end. While Subaru was engaged in Sparker and Abel was throwing himself into his work to honor his sister's memory, many tried to fill the void left by Priscilla's absence. But Al had continuously secluded himself in his room. He had been so devastated by his loss that it seemed he might simply vanish. Now, he was on his way back to the kingdom. The reason Al was returning to the kingdom was, Al, bro, I have a request. I heard a rumor about the Sage's Tower. Some say you can read the records of the dead inside the tower. There's a book I wanna read, Subaru, Priscilla's Book of the Dead. Subaru felt conflicted. Would obtaining that book trample upon the wishes of Priscilla, who had departed so nobly? Yet, having witnessed Al and Priscilla's farewell and knowing the despair that followed for Al, Subaru wanted to help him. And so, Subaru, is it okay if I ask for your help again, Shaola? To once again make the pilgrimage to that tower at the edge of the Sea of Sand, was the only way Subaru felt he could support Al without relying on return by death.